Good morning, boys and girls. Um, this domain, you've learned so far about 5 different presidents. You learned about George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt, and Barack Obama. Well, today we're going to, you're going to hear about 4 of those 5 presidents that you've learned about, whose faces are carved onto Mount Rushmore, which is a rock mountain in South Dakota. And the first picture here shows us an image of Mount Rushmore. So Mount Rushmore is a national monument. It's a work of art made to remember a person or event. So each face on the monument represents a president. So here we have George Washington. Then we have Jefferson. This one is Roosevelt. And then the last one here on the right is Abraham Lincoln. The 5th president that you learned about the other day with Mrs. Hall, Barack Obama, was not represented in Mount Rushmore, only because he became president many, many years after this was carved. So today, I want you to listen to hear about the making of Mount Rushmore. So I want you to listen to how it was created and who was involved. So today I'm going to tell you a story about a wonderful monument. This is a special monument of 4 of the presidents you have been learning about: George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. This monument is carved or cut out of rock on Mount Rushmore in the Black Hills of South Dakota. Boom! Everyone near the mountain was covering their ears, but they still heard the thunderous explosion followed by loud crashes. Boom! It happened again. Gutzon Borglum was blowing up a mountain. And you can see that here, all this dust and smoke. So Gutzon Borglum was a well-known American sculptor. So a sculptor is someone who creates a work of art by carving or molding clay or stone. He created many statues of important people in history. One of his statues of Abraham Lincoln is on display inside the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Gutzon Borglum usually used a hammer and chisels with sharp points to make sculptures out of rock. But this statue was different. This time, Gutzon Borglum was using dynamite to blow away huge pieces of rock from the side of a gigantic mountain. It all began with a man who had a big idea, a very big idea. Dwayne Robinson, no relation to me, loved his home state of South Dakota. He loved hearing stories about South Dakota from long ago. He loved South Dakota so much that he wanted people from all over America to visit and learn about his home state. I know a way to get people to come to South Dakota, thought Robinson. People will come to see a giant statue carved into the side of one of our big mountains. Robinson thought the sculpture should feature well-known people from South Dakota's past. Maybe a Native American chief, or a hero from the Wild West, or perhaps explorers like Lewis and Clark. He wasn't quite sure who the statue should feature, but he knew one thing. It would have to be so big that people could see it miles away. Robinson knew that he would need to get permission to build such an enormous statue. He would also need money to pay for the project and a sculptor to design it. The first person Robinson talked to was a United States Senator from South Dakota. The senator thought it was a wonderful idea. I will help get the United States government to agree with your plan, the senator told Robinson. I will ask my friends in the South Dakota government for their support too. Not everyone thought the idea to carve a giant statue in the mountains of South Dakota was a good one. For many, many years, various Native American tribes lived on the land around Mount Rushmore. Many Native Americans, including the Lakota Sioux, believed the area of the Black Hills where Mount Rushmore was to be carved was sacred or holy land. They did not think it was right that their sacred land was first taken away from them years earlier, and now they did not believe that a statue should be carved into the mountain. So not everybody thought that that was a good idea. Despite the Native Americans' objections, Robinson and the senator moved forward with their plan to find a sculptor. So that means the Native Americans did not want them to carve the mountain, but they did it anyway. They found the perfect man for the job, Gutzon Borglum. So remember, he was a well-known sculptor at that time. Gutzon Borglum came to South Dakota to see the mountains for himself. He liked the idea of carving a huge statue into the Black Hills, but he believed this project should be even bigger than Robinson and the senator first imagined. To attract people from all over America, said the sculptor, we should carve statues of people who are familiar across the country, not just well known in South Dakota. Robinson and the senator liked Borglum's idea. It was Borglum who suggested 4 presidents who he felt symbolized the first 150 years of America: Presidents Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, and Roosevelt. President George Washington was our first president. President Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. President Lincoln was the president during the Civil War, and President Roosevelt, a personal favorite of Borglum and Robinson, worked for native conservation. So that means that he wanted to protect the land, the water, the air, and the animals in nature. While the others support Gutzon Borglum began to search the Black Hills for the right spot to carve his monument. No, he thought, the rock in this one is not the right kind for carving. It will crumble and fall apart. That mountain has the right kind of rock, but it cannot be seen well from a distance. Finally, Borglum announced, we shall carve Mount Rushmore. American history will march along that mountaintop. And you can see he's holding there in his hand a picture of a sketching of what it might look like. Now, the only thing the group needed was the money to pay for the project. As luck would have it, Calvin Coolidge, the U.S. president at the time, and his wife came to South Dakota on vacation. To make sure that President and Mrs. Coolidge enjoyed their visit, the senator and his friends secretly moved extra fish into the stream outside the Coolidge's vacation cabin. They hoped the president would catch lots of fish and want to stay in South Dakota longer. It worked. While he was there, Gutzon Borglum and Dwayne Robinson went to ask the president to help raise money for their project. President Coolidge liked the idea too. He gave a speech about their plan so people from all across the country would read about it and send money to help. Finally, Gutzon Borglum could begin carving the mountainside monument. And you boys and girls probably recognize this first image here is the hammer, and this piece here is called a chisel. So it's pointed here, and then it's flat here. This carving was too big to create with a hammer and chisel the way Borglum sculpted other statues. So most sculptures use these hammers and chisels to sculpt the statues. But the mountain's going to be really big. Some of the chunks of rock he wanted to cut away from the mountainside were as big and heavy as a truck. He would have to blow them away with dynamite. So here you can see that's the picture of the dynamite there, the red. So Gutzon Berglund had about 400 people helping him. Many had worked in mines and knew about cutting rock. So people in mines dig into the ground to find coal and minerals. And in order to dig through the ground, they needed to cut through rock. So they had a lot of experience with that. Others had used dynamite to blow open holes for mines, but they told Berglund, "Nobody has ever asked us to shape a mountain before. We do not know where to set the dynamite so it will explode in the right direction. We don't know how to blow up just the right amount of rock, but not too much." Berglund had to figure out how to do that himself and teach his workers. Every step had to be done very carefully. If they cut too much rock, they could not put it back. After the dynamite did its job, some workers smoothed the surface, while others cleaned up the rocks and dust left from the explosions. So they had to really, really be careful as to where they placed the dynamite, because, like they said, if it blew up and they made a mistake, they couldn't put the rock back. So here is an image of part of the mountain, and you can see here are two people working on that mountainside. It took more than 14 years to complete the project from beginning to end. Unfortunately, Gutzon Berglund died in March 1941, just 6 months before the giant faces were done. Thankfully, his son Lincoln, who Berglund had named after the president, was determined to finish what his father had begun. So he did not give up on the work to finish the monument. He kept going. So here is what it looks like today. Today, millions of people from all across America and all around the world visit Mount Rushmore every year to see the enormous images of Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln. The carved faces sit 500 feet above the ground and measure 60 feet long. That's the height of a 6-story building from forehead to chin. Even more amazing, the monument can be seen from 60 miles away. Dwayne Robinson had dreamed that people would come. The senator worked tirelessly to make it happen, and Gutzon Berglund and his son, Lincoln Berglund, brought the dream to life. So even though Gutzon passed away 6 months before it was completely finished, his son kept on with his dream and finished the project that his dad started. Now, I've never been to Mount Rushmore, but if I ever get to South Dakota, I would love to go see that. I think it would be a really amazing sight to see. I wonder if any of you boys and girls, or maybe your parents, have ever been there and seen it. I will be posting the questions that go along with this on Seesaw for my kindergarten friends. And Mrs. Hall, I believe, will be on tomorrow with our last one. I hope you boys and girls have been enjoying learning about all of our presidents and the history of the United States. I will talk to you guys soon.